Welcome, everyone, to the Feminine Outliers podcast, your dose of fun, life advice, and experiences from two African professional women living and working in the Western world. We're your hosts, Zelda Wasau
and Chilwe Mandona.
And we are excited to have you here with us. So, welcome back to another episode on our amazing podcast. We are going to be talking about interesting and possibly deep but really fun topic today. We're going to be talking about minimalism, as you can see the title of the podcast. And it's something that I absolutely love. Well, at least I've grown to love. I didn't start out loving it. But before we start the topic of the day, we are going to talk about what we are unlearning for the week. And I will go ahead and start with my unlearning piece. I think it's a quick and short unlearning, but I am unlearning overthinking things. I feel like because it's a combination of things, being an introvert, being someone who is a deep thinker. Like I'm not someone who just follows what everyone else is doing. I think for myself. I try to actually understand why we're doing this, why we're not doing this. So in general, I tend to analyze things a lot. I'm a critical thinker, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And so when things happen, that whole thinking piece comes into play. And it can be good, but it can be detrimental sometimes because I feel like sometimes I just tend to overthink things. Like something small happens and you're like, why did this happen to me? Why did so-and-so do this to me? Or what was their intention? And you start to think about all possible scenarios. And being human, human beings, our minds go to the worst possible case scenario first as a protection mechanism for us. So you think about the worst possible scenario, but then the logical part of me at some point reminds me, but you don't really know the real reasoning behind why what happened. It might be honestly just a fluke, a mistake, and you're here worrying that someone purposefully targeted you, did this or that with like malicious intent or not, or something like that. And it's funny because it could be something so simple, like something so small throughout your day. Like if someone cuts you off when driving, you might ruminate on this and think, why did they do that? And I'm not gonna lie, like this is part of me that there's a time that happened to me, and then I realized, wait a minute, but you have also cut people off when driving, but I did it accidentally because I was maybe not paying attention, and then something happened, and I realized, oh crap, I'm cutting someone off. So that was the part of me, my logical side that's coming out, and it's like, but you don't know the reason. You're assuming someone is just being a jerk, but you cut off someone before and you didn't do it on purpose. It was a mistake. Now, obviously, the person you cut off will not know, but so I just realized when I need to stop overthinking situations, because when you overthink, you think about the most negative situations for the most part. And instead of just thinking about it as in a whole, but sometimes you don't even have to really understand why something happened. Just move on. You don't have to have an answer to everything. It's certain things that's just like, oh, that happened. Oh, okay. Or someone made this statement. Oh, okay. I mean, it didn't necessarily hit me the right way, but I'm like, oh, okay. And moving on. Cause like, you don't have to focus on these things. So that's something. I mean, I feel like it's a thing I notice a lot of people deal with. And I just have to tell myself, stop overthinking. There's no point of overthinking. And also the other thing that comes into play with my logical side is when going back to, is it Atomic Habits? I'm not sure if it's Atomic Habits. No, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, that book. When he says, oh, you're not that special. that thing rings in my head because when you're thinking that someone did something to target you because of blah 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 blah, it's as if you're kind of putting yourself on a pedestal and thinking
Mm-hmm.
that, oh, this person is thinking about me, they're thinking about XYZ, and it's like, no, they're not really thinking about you. I mean, for the most part, there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot, like, they're not really thinking about you. It's just it happened, and they probably have not even they probably even forgot what happened if something happened. And that's why I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, stop overthinking. So I'm unlearning to overthink. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. No, that's a good reminder. You actually remind me of another book entitled "The Four Agreements." I think it's worth a read. It's a very simple book,
I've heard
and
about
what
it.
yeah, and it's basically the author elaborates on four principles, and one of them is don't take things personally.
Mm,
And you just brought it up, the idea of thinking that you're special, but you're not special. Um, and so, yeah, that's a good one. And I think sometimes I've noticed that people try to, um, I don't know how to say this, but to some people they want to show that they do not want to be mistreated, so they extend that energy to be like, who does this person
mm,
think they are for them to do this to me? I'm not the kind of person that tolerates this kind of behavior or action. And but as you said, that is kind of a waste of time to prove that. um so you could might as well just you know, take the high road and just keep moving. Because the question then
mm,
becomes, should I put this much energy into this particular thing when I could use that energy elsewhere where, I don't know, it really matters and it's probably more positive than really spending your energy trying to prove something maybe to yourself or to other people. So I like that. I like that.
what are you unlearning?
Yeah. So yeah, this week I am unlearning. I don't know. I actually don't know how to phrase it in an unlearning format. So can I just say what I am learning? At least give me the this the space or the credit to do it. At least for this episode.
Sure.
Okay. But I think it's a really good one. I it just hit me this week that uh we are going to be a product, or I'm going to be a product of my actions, and not my thoughts. And just this idea that and I don't know if you have experienced this, Zell, but like even just talking to friends and family, when people, they'll gather and say, yeah, I wanted to be this when I grew up, or I wish I could go to this place, or I wish I could try and eat this. Um, but then it just dawned on me that wow, like thoughts are just thoughts. Like they don't carry as much, I don't know whether it's emphasis or energy as much as an action. So,
Mm,
um, and that's just something I was thinking through as I have been taking a break, um, and waking up in the morning and asking myself, what are the things, what things are you going to do today? As opposed to saying, okay, what things can I think about today? And just realizing that my life is really based on the actions that I will take, or that I take. And I guess this is for everybody else, that it will be our actions. I don't see people saying, oh, Cholway wanted to do this. It would be Cholway did this. I'm just thinking of like
Mm.
my obituary. And so that really hit. I
Sorry.
know. But you know what I mean? Like it just hit me in a way that I was like, wait a minute. So even if I don't know how to um, do something, it's better that I try, because even if my attempts, are not going to be as great, trying is just way better than not doing it. Um, and it's definitely way better than just thinking about it. Anyway, that's my learning and my deep moment of realization, I guess.
So, when you said that, that's a very interesting way of looking at it. Um,
Mm,
Simply because, no, I totally agree in the sense that it's your actions really that will make the difference. You just
mm,
can't sit and talk about or ruminate or think about what you want to do in life, but just never
mm-hmm,
put the actions to it. I agree with that. The only thing that I found interesting is I really like how you talked about this aspect of your actions, kind of, over your thoughts. But it's
mm-hmm,
interesting because on the other side, I'm sure you've had your thoughts become action, your actions,
mm,
or like they influence your actions. So, like, obviously, there's the aspect you're talking about in which you have all these dreams, aspirations, thoughts, but they don't get put in action. But there's also the other
mm-hmm,
side, the unconscious side. I
mm,
would call it the unconscious side, in which your thoughts become your actions. So
yeah.
if you think you're horrible at soccer and you really, really believe it, you might just end up being horrible at it because subconsciously there's something blocking you from actually doing well at it. If you
Mm,
think you're gorgeous and you walk around like as if you'll start walking around as if you're gorgeous because you believe in it, so your thoughts also become your action. So it's such an oxymoron because it's like both both of the different sides actually play a role. Because I
mm-hmm,
I also, because I'm so used to the whole, what you think you become, which
mm,
I find that's true too. You have to monitor your thoughts because that's where it all starts. So it's
yeah.
kind of a thing of you can't just ignore your thoughts because that's where it starts. But you have to be smart enough to realize that even though you're thinking this, you also need to put your thoughts into action. Now, that
Yes.
tends to be the
Yeah.
harder aspect for a lot of people because it's like, oh, I
Mm-hmm,
think X, Y, and Z, but how do I actually implement it can be a bit of an issue.
mm-hmm,
Um, but in some aspects, there some conscious biases and things that we don't realize our actions are actually a result of our thoughts. So there's that aspect,
mm-hmm,
and there's also this other aspect in which you actually have to be purposeful about it. So it's just very
mm-hmm.
interesting because it just made me think about both those two different aspects and
Yeah.
how we have to have a mixture of both, um,
Mm,
in a sense. But it is true that ultimately, if you don't do what it is that you are thinking of doing, I mean, they're
mm-hmm,
not going to remember that, as you said in your obituary. When they would remember what you thought, they'll remember what
mm-hmm.
you did.
What you did. Yeah.
So that's very true. But again, your thoughts become your thoughts become your actions, but your thoughts need to be put into action. So
Yeah. No,
yeah.
100%. And the thing, because I think that, like I've been on this baking journey,
Mm-hmm.
and just
True.
wanting to get better. Yeah. Since I set up that goal to be on the British Bake Off. Woohoo. Um, so the one thing that I just thought about in my head was, I would rather be known for not baking that good than not baking at all. Because I would rather people have a laugh around how either like my baked goods tasted funny if I was not a good baker, right? So if they tasted funny and people just laugh like, "Oh my goodness, you always used to add more salt than necessary or baking powder." I would rather have that story in my history of life than not actually ever known to have baked, because then it's just it never it just never happened.
Right.
So that was so that was just like a realization, being like, okay, you know what? If I want this thing in my life, and even if I don't know how to do it really well or skillfully, at least I will start so that I can tick tick it at least in terms of life, like done. It has been done. It has been tried. Um, but yeah,
I like that. And I'm
yeah.
rooting for you and your baking aspirations
Thank you so
from
much.
from a fellow baker.
I
I'm like,
know.
yes. Um,
Yeah.
so um, we're now going to talk about drum roll. Okay, drum roll in my head. Minimalism.
Dun-dun-dun-dun. I actually tried it. Um,
um, so we're just going to start off with what is minimalism defined as? Let's just get a little bit of what the experts say. Um,
hmm.
no, actually, before I do that, what's your definition of minimalism, Charlie?
Wow, that's a good question. I don't know if I'll be able to summarize it in a way that captures every aspect of it, but
Try.
I can. Oh, wow! I like how you're trying me, which is great. Um, I guess it's having. I think of it in terms of, let's say, the stuff that I have is having just enough to fully live your life,
Mm,
and just be content with it. Um, and I I guess it has come from this um, aspect of being, I don't know, I want to say, being in this part of the world where there's an opportunity to access more than we need, and which leads to a lot of holding and just, I don't know, saving up, um, and then that leads to I don't know, disrupting our lives and not making us feel as whole and as joyful. And so cutting back on that is what I consider minimalism, or practicing minimalism.
okay. Yeah, I would say I kind of have a similar viewpoint on it. It's kind of just using or doing what is necessary in life without the extra fluff. Um,
Mm,
so that's what I would say it is to me in like a sentence or so.
mm-hmm,
Um, but like I got this definition on this website of someone who's talking about minimalism, and they define it as a design or a style in which the simplest and the fewest elements are used to create the maximum effect.
mm,
And I feel like that was so on point in the sense
mm,
it's like, yeah, the what can I do that with the just simplest thing, the most basic thing, but it will have the biggest impacts in X, Y, or Z. It was an interesting
Mhm.
way to think about it though, because I'm just thinking about, yeah, when I as I said, I just think about doing the what you need without the fluff. But this kind of brought
Mhm.
in a different dimension into it. And minimalism is something that I don't know if you grew up with it.
Mhm.
I didn't.
Mm.
Um,
No.
it wasn't something that was kind of a part of my life, to be honest. So it's something I actually have grown into in my late 20s.
Mhm.
Um, is when I started, and I was like, like, and I think really what triggered it. This is gonna be funny. So I love watching, or like, I used to love watching HGTV. And I love looking at
Mm.
like architectural design, like homes and stuff. And I really love like those, like, where they show houses in like Santorini, like the hotel Santorini, Greece, that are just like
Mhm.
marble or stone with like the just cream color, beige and all that, and just so simplistic and so
Mhm.
clean lines and everything. I remember looking at that, I'm like, that is so beautiful and it's so elegant and it's so simple, and it just makes the room so inviting. It's funny because you don't have much like in the room, but it's
Mhm.
just so, it looks so sleek and elegant. That was my first
Mhm.
introduction to minimalism, and I was like, and then I started seeing this and I started learning more about it, and I'm like, this is actually a thing. And
Mm.
um growing up, obviously, I didn't necessarily see minimalism. So for me, I was like, I definitely like that design when it comes to the
Mhm.
home. But then minimalism,
Mhm.
it also just carries over into all our different aspects of life. And I like that. Did you have like any kind of background in minimalism? Or when is the first time, you heard about it, things like that?
Mm. No, I did not grow up thinking about minimalism. If anything, I think there was a desire to have more stuff. I think from what I saw in my environment, it was like if you are successful, or let's say you're wealthy, or you're rich, it means you have more, quote unquote, more stuff. So it didn't even occur to me that you can do with less and still um, do much, basically do the things that you want to do. Um, so it came to me, I don't remember, I want to say like maybe 4 years ago. Let's just say 4 years ago. And in true Cholwe fashion, where when something is not working out for me, and for me it was my clothes in my closet. I just had, so I don't know, I had so many clothes, and I want to say this is relative. Some people might have gone into my closet and they may have said, well, this is not a lot. I know I've been in some of my friends' closets, and I know that I probably have less. um But for me, with having this efficiency mindset, logical thinker, and having, like having to do things like doing your laundry, cleaning up your closet, having to just think about all these things, to me, it was like, this is taking up so much of my time. There has to be a
Mm.
better way to do these things. And so I was like, how do I just get myself organized where I don't have to keep cleaning up my closet over and over again? So I was curious and I started doing my research online, and I came across Marie Kondo. Um,
Mm. That name
and
sounds
it
familiar.
Yes, she's the author of The Magic of Tidying Up. I believe that's the title of the book. And she eventually had her own show where she would go to people's homes and help them declutter their homes.
Mm.
Um, and the I fell in love with her, and I fell in love with her principles because it was it was my vibe in the sense that it had this like holistic, meditative, reflective approach where she basically would ask you to gather, um, let's say, in terms if it was if it was clothes, she would tell you to gather all your clothes and put all your clothes in a pile, like every single item in your closet, everything, put it in a pile, and you then start picking one uh, item of clothing, and I guess you look at it and you try and get a sense of like, does this thing bring me joy? It sounds kind of funny sometimes when I think about it, but it's a simple question like, does this bring me joy?
Enjoy. Hmm.
And then if you say no, it basically means you're getting rid of it. If it's yes, you
Hmm.
say, okay, I'm going to keep it. So in a let me just say in a layman's way of explaining this is she basically wants you to keep the things that you look forward to wearing. Like that's and I think we all have that because I want to say probably on a weekly basis most of the items that are probably in your laundry basket are the clothes that you actually like wearing, and then you probably have the pieces that you're like, I probably wear it once a year or, for a particular occasion. Um, but ultimately, she just makes you get rid of things that don't make you happy or they don't elicit positive emotions in your life. And so, why keep something for the sake of keeping it just because you know it was maybe something that was sentimental, and she does actually go into that. She was like, yeah, if things were like, oh, this came from my mom and I love my mom, and but if it doesn't make you happy, she's like, yeah, why are you keeping that? You don't. So she's really strict about that principle. So yeah, and that's how I started getting into it. I read the book, and just I think I actually listened to the I think I believe I listened to the book twice just because it really was such a transformative process for me. So that's how I started getting into it.
What's the name of the book again?
The magic art of tidying up, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll look into it. That's interesting. I like it. You thinking about does this bring me joy?
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
a it's a good way of I haven't thought about things like that. For me, it's more so do I actually need it or am I actually using it? If I haven't
Mm.
if I haven't used it in a while, then I get rid of it. Actually, now I've started to do that because I realized what is the point of me doing having it here? And just
Mhm.
realistically thinking, I have to be like, do I actually want this? Do I have a purpose for it? Am I going to use it? But
Mm. Mhm.
that we can discuss more about like how we can discuss more about different aspects of how minimalism fits. But I think for now, I just want us to talk about so there's minimalism in different aspects of our lives, right? So
Mhm.
it can be your personal life, the home, work. And
Mhm.
I think like I for our standpoint, we can like divide it into, our minimalism at home and in our personal life.
Mm.
And for me, the personal life is the part that I guess I didn't see coming. Like,
Mm.
because as I told you, when I thought about minimalism, I thought about home, like at home. Like, I had a
Yeah.
certain viewpoint of how the house would look like and all that stuff when I was giving you the examples of those beautiful architectural homes I'm seeing.
Mhm.
Um, but minimalism in personal life is like it fits in a lot of different things. Like one of the things I found really interesting is minimalism in friendships.
Mm.
Uh, Basically, it means, and from what I was reading, it's like quality over quantity.
Mhm.
So spend your time with fewer people who actually have more of an impact in your life than with multiple people who are not going to, really have an impact in your life, That is one
Mhm.
thing I think it really helped me out with in regards to like just my friendships, relationships. It's just really thinking about, is this relationship really serving me? Is this person
Mm.
negative? Do I feel a good vibe when I'm around them? Or is it just, what's the point? And if there's no point of me having them in my life, then it's time to let go, because it's kind of part of the fluff that you let go of. And
Mhm.
I think that's like a good aspect in my personal life that it helped with. But it's funny
Mhm.
because another part of my personal life that it helped with was scheduling.
Yeah.
Um, and I never thought about this before. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, that's true. It makes sense. Like when you have a crazy schedule with so many things, it
Mhm.
can be overwhelming. So sometimes it's like just thinking, what do I really need to do? What do I really need to include in my schedule? What are the non-essentials that I can let go of? Is it, if this non-essential is something that I still need to do I have to do it today, or can I spread out my non-essentials over different days so that I can give myself some time to breathe, some breathing rooms in my schedule, so I can do other things that I enjoy doing. And, whether
Mm.
it's spending time with family, loved ones, reading a book, going to bed earlier. When you have too much on hand, I feel like your mind gets cluttered, and
Mhm.
you can't think straight. So just decluttering my schedule, it's one of the ways of minimalism I didn't realize, but it was actually minimalism just working with my schedule. What about you? Do you have like things in your personal life that you can say minimalism has helped with?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's changed my life. I've changed so drastically. To be fair, one example is shopping. I grew up or going to the store, going to the shopping mall, um, every chance I could get. I was that person who would be like, let's go to the mall, let's go check out, even just window shop.
Mm-hmm.
Like kind of like that retail therapy of where like, oh, if you're bored at home, let's just go and grab, I don't know, like a pack of potato chips or something and just walk around in the meanwhile, right? Um, and I remember when I first started working and getting, my first paycheck and things like that, it was so exciting to just go shopping. I mean, it was just shopping season. And so it just felt like, oh, this is something you do. Like you work throughout the week, over the weekend, you're driving to a shopping mall. Um, and in the US, I would even go as far as going to like the factory outlet malls. So that was pretty fun. But then once I started introducing minimalism and realizing that I didn't need to keep going for more things, my desire to go shopping just went away. And as you put it, I had more time to be creative. Um, and
Mm-hmm.
honestly, I don't even think like even like for example like something like the podcast where you spend time thinking, creating, because that's another thing about doing this kind of work. You need that time to think and
Mm-hmm.
be with yourself and kind of say, okay, where do I want things to progress? So yeah, so I don't shop that much at all, in terms of doing like clothes shopping or going to a shopping mall, if I do, I am going to replace what whatever, let's say if it's a piece of clothing, then something has happened to it. Like it just, I can no longer wear it. And and not even no longer wear it. I can no longer repair it. Like it's not worth repairing it. Because that's another thing that it has helped me do is it has helped me extend like my time to get to know people in my community. So, for example, every time I move to a new place, I try to find a dedicated tailor, because that is the person I go to. Like, if something has happened to my clothes, they can, and if they can alter it and change something or repair
Mm.
it, and usually if it's something like, it's under, maybe let's say $10, $5, like I'm like, wait a minute, yeah, I don't have to go and get another piece of item which is worth like maybe let's say $50 plus. This was just a $5 situation. So that's how much I have it has shifted my thinking around shopping and creating that time for me to just create instead. Um so, and it's now I'm at a point, because I've been practicing it for such a long time now, I would say. Now for example, like the first thing I try to do in my day is, it sounds really funny and maybe sounds very nerdy, is I try to find the things that are using up a lot of my time. So, for
Mm.
example, I noticed that my the days that I wash my hair, it took up too much time. Like it, I believe people coin it as like the hair wash day or wash day, where it's like, don't call me on my wash day because I'm going to be pre-shampooing, I'm going to be shampooing, I'm going to be conditioning, and then I still have to leave in condition, I still have to put in oil. So the routine was just like, to me, it was just like, it just seemed like so much.
Mm.
um and by the end of the day, it's like, oh gosh, I've just spent like 4 or 5 hours on my hair alone, when I could have been using that time to do something, make more money somehow. Let's just do something that would get me to a better state. And I spent it on my hair. And I'm not saying that my hair is a problem, but it's just, it takes so much time. So I started looking into how I can cut down on like the things I don't need to do on my hair. And now I reduced my routine, my wash routine, such that now I only spend a maximum of like about an hour to do my hair. When I wash it, it's only about an hour. So it's gotten to that point where minimalism is pretty much in the back of my mind whenever something is taking up much of my time, and I'm like, there's somewhere where I'm doing something where it's probably not, it's just too much, or like it's just taking up too much time. So
And you're talking about like one of the major benefits of minimalism, which is like freeing up your time. You have more time to do stuff that actually matters because you get rid of all the non-essential stuff that doesn't matter. And I like your example about the hair because you you kind of made your hair regimen a little bit more basic or more essential, and so now you spend less time on your hair and you have more time to do other things, and that is such a
hmm
big benefit of minimalism. Just having time to extra time, more time to do stuff, and I found that as to be so real because, as I said, in my schedule, for example, I have more time to do stuff because I've kind of just focused on the more important things and the essentials.
hmm
Um, I think that's such a huge benefit of minimalism. Another benefit I would say about minimalism is just decluttering. Um,
Mm,
and decluttering, it can be physical decluttering, it can be mental decluttering, any kind of decluttering. I
mm,
think minimalism helps with that because, for example, at home, uh, I've reached a point in which, and I'm getting there. I'm still, because I just moved in August, so there's still certain things I'm going through, and I'm realizing, why do I have this? So, this pair of shoes, do I actually want to keep them? Because I haven't worn them for years. Why do I have them? Am I
mm,
just keeping them for show? And so I'm going through my house and actually getting rid of things that I don't need or don't use.
mhm.
I just want my house to ultimately be things that I need.
Yeah,
Full stop. That's what I want. If I don't need
yeah.
it, if I don't use it, or what, like, what's the point? It has to serve some kind of a purpose. So yeah, I mean, plants do serve a purpose. I don't need them, but I want them. But they do serve a
Mhm,
purpose of making my house like look pretty and stuff like that. So things like if I have a use for something, then it's okay. If I don't have a use for something, then I'm just like it's time to go because I want everything to have a spot in the house. This is also going back to organization. When I have a
mhm,
clean home, I'm able to think well because the place is decluttered. My mind can just process better. I look at the house and I'm like, it's clean. There's nothing on the floor. I can think.
mhm.
When
Yeah.
the space is cluttered and all, I'm that crazy person who at midnight I'm trying to go to sleep and I'm like, I can't. I have to fold laundry. I have to do this. I have to do that. And I literally will do it because there's just something about it that when I actually declutter all that stuff, it helps me
Mhm,
think better, it helps me sleep better because my mind is clearer. That's why
mhm,
I'm leaning towards minimalism because I just want to have what I need. So I don't have to worry about constantly decluttering because it's like you just have what you need, which is
mhm,
an interesting thing because I find that when people buy me gifts for my house, I'm getting to a
mhm,
point in which if you don't know what I like or what I want, you might as well
mhm.
just give me a gift card instead of
Yeah,
buying me something because I only want to buy stuff that I actually want in the house. I don't
yeah,
want extra stuff that I don't want.
yeah,
So, and
yeah.
it's gonna getting to a point in which I'll just if I don't want it, I'm not going to use it. I'm going to get rid of it because it's interfering with just the whole aspect of minimalism. And in the
Mm,
same way, it's just minimalism in my life, when I just try to do the essential things or really break down what is important to me and remove all the fluff that is just unnecessary. It just declutters the brain. You think better. You think well. You're actually able to have more room and space to think, as you said, be more creative.
mhm,
Because I'm able to think better. I'm able to do things
mhm,
better. And that's like been such a major advantage and benefit of minimalism that I have found because I'm just able to things that just the clarity it gives, I feel
mhm,
is really helpful. And yes, it's hard to
mhm,
get to that point of I know this is what I want, this is what I don't want, but I feel like it's so worth it. I totally see the
mm,
benefit of it because it's like everything is just more clearer, everything is simpler and clearer. And you're able
mhm.
to relax better, be more creative, be more active, and actually, I feel like you end up expending less energy doing something when everything in your life is just minimalistic.
Yeah, but it's also maybe it's something to bear in mind is why don't people do this? Why don't people declutter, or why do people tend to have either so many
Hmm.
things or like so many friends? Because I can imagine, and I'm trying to remember if I was like this, where it having a lot of things gave this sense of like security or safety, like, oh, if I don't have more than this, then what's going to happen if I lose it? What's going to happen? So even just like, for example, with the fridge, um it's another it's something that I'm also currently working on, where I would tend to buy enough food, or like food where it just the whole fridge has stuff in there. um and then it felt like this sense of like, oh my goodness, if there's anything that happens, at least I have all this food.
Mm,
um and sometimes even when I would do shopping and just going around the store, it just, there's this, I don't know, like there's just this sense of happiness that you get, like, ooh, I'm gonna grab the bag of potato chips, and then I'm gonna grab some biscuits, and then I'm gonna grab my favorite juice, and just you do all of this shopping, and then you come home and you fill up your cupboards or your fridge, and the fridge is full. But then it's like, technically you're only going to eat like one fruit, and like if you're staying on your own, it's all of that food at some point, it would take over a week or two to eat. And I'm just like, why did I do this? But in the moment it was very exciting. So there's this sense of security that I got when I didn't declutter. And also there was this sense of like responsibility that I felt. You mentioned, for example, like folding clothes. It just like, it would distract me, right? It would be like, oh, if someone was like, hey, we need to do this, or
mm-hmm.
do you want to go out and do this? And I'm like, no, I have to clean my house. I have to do this, or I have to do that. And not really thinking like, where do my values actually lie? Because it's like, again, going back to this idea of like, you will be remembered for your actions. And I'm like, are people going to remember that I cleaned my clothes, like I did my laundry and cleaned the house, and like, it's more
I
like,
mean,
okay,
they would
yeah.
remember if your house is just a normal house, but if your house is dirty, they will remember.
Okay, if the house is dirty. Yeah, okay, I guess that's a good point. But just in terms of like, what experiences do I want more of? Maybe I should put it that way.
Mm.
And I just felt busy, and busy felt felt like I was significant. Um and also, again, I think I mentioned this sense or status of feeling wealthy or successful, because if you have more stuff, it means you can afford it. And that's a good thing. um you know like um I also, like, I think this, I would say, is like a limitation, in the sense that, you know like sometimes when people think of, let's say, like as a professional engineer, maybe people have expectations that, oh, because you have this cool job, it means you should have this in your house, and you should have this in your house, and this. And if someone came to my space and realized how how minimal it is, they would think, wait, what? Like, your surroundings or your environment doesn't seem to match up with this professional job that you have. But they don't realize that minimalism is not about being cheap or frugality. It's just about putting your energy in like specific areas where you want that energy to be. So it's like,
Hmm.
no, I don't want to spend money on an extra couch. I want that money to grow. I'm investing in that money, and I want that money to grow. So people may not
So,
even understand that.
so you're talking about, but that's like, and that's a good point because it's one of those major misconceptions people have. It's like you kind of just you're thinking about that's thinking about minimalism in a negative way in the sense that you're like, why don't you have all this? Why don't you do that? And I feel like that's like one of the common misconception people have when it comes to minimalism. But you mentioned
Mm,
something that oh yeah, the example of the house, which kind of ties into um this negative perception of minimalism. When you were saying, oh, like my friend was asking if I can go out, but then no, I told her I have to clean or cook and clean. Why is it that you're cleaning and when at the time when you're going out with your friends, you have 24 hours in a day. You can do it at another time. Because now, if you
Mm,
consider, if you do the cooking and the cleaning or whatever, and organizing your house at a time when you're actually prime time when you can be doing meeting with other people, then it's going to have a negative connotation towards minimalism because you feel like you have to do it and you can't go out. So I feel like this whole you can eat this or that kind of mentality is an issue that comes sometimes with minimalism. And I'm like, no, it's not that. If you plan your time, you could, like, first thing in the morning, you could do your cleaning, still have time to hang out with people. It's just prioritizing what needs to be
mm.
done.
Yeah, no, I think I was talking about, I was talking about back in the day, like before I used to be minimal. It was like there was this thing of where it was like, oh, I'm going to spend today cleaning my house. But
Mm.
now with minimalism, typically my house is usually clean. And it's something that Marie Kondo teaches people as well, where every item in your house has a location. So,
Oh, I love that. I love that. I agree with that.
yeah. So basically, like in back in the time, it would be like, oh, I'm gonna spend the weekend cleaning, quote unquote, my house, right? But then now it's like the only thing I have to do is maybe disinfecting like, you know, the the tables, the surfaces, and whatever, the bathrooms and things like that. But most of the time, like now, because every item I have as a location, the house is typically very tidy. And honestly, if someone just randomly came to visit me, I wouldn't be like trying to find a broom and trying because I remember I remember back in the day, like if someone tried to come and visit me, I'll be like, "Oh my goodness, this is not where it needs to be." I'll be fluffing pillows. I'll be like, "Oh my
Mm-hmm.
goodness, they're almost there. They're coming and they're gonna see this." But now, someone can be like, "Hey, I'm by your door," and I would be like, "You are more than welcome to come in because um,
Mm-hmm.
everything has its place." So yeah, that's what I was referring to about my priorities now. I definitely like now. If someone said, "Let's go out," I'm like, "Yep, I'm ready to go."
Got it. Got it. So some of the challenges, other challenges in minimalism, I think as we're talking about them, is things often get worse before they get better. How do I explain
Mm,
that? When you're starting on this journey to minimalism, for example, the going back to the whole Marie Kondo quote of everything in the house needs to have a place. So
mhm,
as you're cleaning up your house, you're gonna find so much junk, so many things. Those small items that you have to figure out what to do with them, where to put
I
them,
know.
and that can be rather daunting. I'm not going to lie.
Mhm,
I'm still in the process of doing that for some things, in which I'm like, okay, what do I do with this? Where do I put it? What's the best place to store it? That can be rather frustrating, and so that's the whole. Things will get worse before they get better. So you have to
mm,
be prepared to go over that hump as you declutter your life, but
mhm,
just being aware that you know things will most likely get worse before they get better. And when they
mhm,
get better, ironically speaking, regular maintenance will be required
mhm,
to. And granted, I feel like the maintenance is. I feel like it's easier than once you get over the hump because now
mhm,
everything has its spots. Whether it's be you have a schedule in your life, you whatever, it's easier to just put things back where they're supposed to be, or like do things when they're supposed to be done. But you still have
mhm,
to, in a sense, maintain it. Like you still have to ensure you put everything back in the place it's supposed to be, or do everything how it's supposed to be done. And that takes just a slightly little bit more effort than not thinking about how you're going to do something or where you're going to place something. Because you can just like, oh, I don't feel like thinking about this. And I'm just going to do this, put it there, or throw it there. Like if you work out and you're like, okay, I don't want to think about throwing my workout clothes in the hamper. So I'll just put them on the ground. I'll figure out where I'm going to put them next time. But you have to maintain it. And
mhm,
that can be a little bit annoying
Mm-hmm.
um, and it can be a bit of a challenge.
No, you're right. And the thing that was challenging for me was the emotional attachments I had to the things I needed to get rid of.
Mm,
Because it was like, oh, this person gave it to me, and it was just incredible how we met, and it was great, and now I want to cherish this thing, but it had no function, as we are talking about. Um,
mhm.
and surprisingly, even now when I look back, I don't actually remember the sentimental items at all.
Right,
You know
right.
what I mean? Like it's hard to say that if some of my friends are listening and they're like, "Oh my goodness, I hope you didn't throw away that thing that I did." I mean, I still have gifts that they're functional and I'm using them, or they just they kind of remind me they're like a souvenir, like they symbolize a time stamp in my life that I'm like, oh
Mm,
yeah, this is definitely, this was a pivotal moment in my life. But for the rest, I would be so surprised. I was like, wait, I owned that? I don't remember owning this thing, which is a good thing because then I'll be like, why did I throw it away? But anyway, yeah.
that's a good reminder to all of us. Some of these things which you think you're emotionally attached to, think about it again. Just
Yeah.
think through it. I would say one last challenge that I can think about that cause with minimalism is people in your life may not understand.
Oh, yes.
And I think you touched on it, Choli. You mentioned something that is very true. And like you said, when you have start earning more income, people kind of expect you to accumulate more.
Exactly. Yeah.
And they may not understand, wait, why are you not accumulating more, having this or having that? Why are you living with what they might consider the bare minimum? You might not be necessarily living with
Exactly.
the bare minimum. You may actually be living with a really good, nice, comfortable life, but you just don't have a lot of extra stuff.
Stop.
And
Yeah.
people might just pass judgment on you. They might wonder like what is the purpose of what you're doing. And it's one of those things in which you have to be careful to not give in to peer pressure in a sense. You
Mm-hmm.
know, you have to be
Mm-hmm.
careful because you know what you're doing. Just because you have more money doesn't mean you have to spend more money.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
Spend it on the things that matter, but
Exactly.
other than that, it shouldn't really be an issue. It shouldn't, be a deciding factor for you. But it is an issue out there.
It is. It really is. And I think it ultimately determines the friends that you have. I mean, if your friends are materialistic, then it's like, yep, I'm definitely not that part of that club. And just kind of accepting that no, I'm not part of that club.
Mm,
Because like for me, I like investing in my experiences. And you don't always have like with experiences, I just mentioned souvenirs. Sometimes a souvenir doesn't really explain how great of an experience you have had. And so, but I
mm,
like the transformation that experiences give me. And just like in the way I think, in the way I do things. And so I'm always thinking of the bigger picture. Like I'm always thinking big about stuff.
mm,
Um, so like for me, I would rather be doing this podcast, for example, than having some physical item in my house that just is like representing, it's just there. It's just there in the corner and it's like I have to maybe dust it or I don't know. And I'm just like, no, I would rather experience stuff because that's where I get my exhilaration from. Um, it's
mm,
actually it's actually so funny. This actually happened today when I was walking in Cambridge. Um, there was just a Lamborghini downtown. Um, really, really fancy. Uh, it was green and it was really
Mhm.
fancy. And I looked at it and I was like, oh, a Lamborghini. Okay, cool. And I just kept moving because I was like, I saw like a nice dress and I was like, ooh, a dress, or like it wasn't even the Lamborghini, and people were taking selfies. I'm probably in people's selfies because I was just like, oh, okay. And that just like to me, it made me realize I was like, like physical items are not my go-to. Like I would love to drive that. Like if the owner of that car was like, do you want to drive it? I'm like, sure. But then I
Mhm.
will I will go back and do what I really love to do. So it's okay. I don't have to be part of that club, but I don't mind being a part of that club. Um,
That's true.
um,
That's so
yeah.
true. I can totally see you doing that. But
Yeah. I was just minding my own business. Like nothing was like, yeah, I just saw a car. Yeah, sure. Keep it moving.
keep
Keep it
moving.
moving.
Keep
Yeah.
moving. Well, guys, we've come to the end of this episode. Uh,
Mm.
it was a nice, fun little episode.
Yeah, this was great.
Just talking about something we don't really talk about every day. We don't really think as much about it, but it's played a big role in our lives. So
Mhm.
just reminding you guys that we are on Instagram. Just type in the
Mhm.
Feminine Outliers. We are also, you can listen to us on all the major podcast platforms, including Spotify, Apple. My understanding is Google is closing down. So we're going to move to YouTube Music, I think. I think that's where they're moving us to. We'll see.
Mm.
We'll let you guys know. Um, but all the major podcast platforms you can find us on.
Mm.
Feel free to email us on the feminineoutliers@gmail.com. Let us know, what are you unlearning? Do you have anything to do? Do you have any thoughts or things to say about minimalism? Would love to know. As always, please give us, rate us, like us, share us with your friends, family, whoever you think can benefit from this podcast. We would love to keep growing and reaching out to more of you guys. So, this has been a great episode,
Mhm.
but until next time, have fun, live large, and don't be afraid to be an outlier.